morning. This is our fourth Your Goal webinar, focused on equality of all genders and best practices showcased by youth leaders. And we have a fantastic speaker this afternoon that is an excellent example of youth leaders, and it's Yasmin Uiran. I would like just, to get you, for your information, you have some information that I will explain you now of what Yasmin is doing. But here you have the QR code to her organization, which I now briefly describe you, and also to the QR code to her latest podcast in We Belong. So I'm proceeding now presenting Yasmin Uiran. Yasmin has an extensive experience and a very detailed CV. So I have to read it honestly, because I was like, wow, it's really comprehensive. So as I just mentioned, and you have here the QR codes to prove this, Yasmin is the co-founder and podcast host of We Belong. And this is an organization focused on supporting women and gender minorities across Europe with leadership programs and coaching sessions. And besides this, she has been recognized as a Young European of the year 2019 by the Sarsov Foundation and an EDD Young Leader by the European Commission, and also serving as an expert for the Commission as well and the African Union, and also a Gender Innovation Agora member for UN Women. And this is not all. She has also delivered keynote speaks at the World Bank and the Commission, and conducted workshops for Change.org and the EM Business School. She's a young member, jury member of the Alliance Foundation, and also has been ambassador for the Estoril conferences and program curator for WISE. So Yasmin, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure having you with us, deep pleasure. And this vast experience demonstrates your commitment to the European youth, to gender equality. And really, we are definitely looking forward to learning from your experience and having this conversation with you. So as we already talked, we are going to organize our talk in three main areas that we will cover different aspects of your experience and the work that you are currently developing. So thanks a lot, Jasmine, for staying here today with us.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for introducing me in such a comprehensive way. Thank you for having me today.
Pleasure. Okay, Jasmine, so let's move to our first question that all our participants can see here in the screen. And it's focused on the key role of leadership through diversity. So if people go to We Belong website, we'll learn definitely more about what you do. And as I mentioned, this platform, this organization have significantly amplified diverse voices. And our question for you is if you could share with us how embracing diversity in leadership roles can transform organizations like yours and communities in general, especially, and this is very connected to our work in encouraging young people to pursue, to develop roles where they can genuinely make a difference.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you everyone for coming today. I'm very happy to meet you. I really want to encourage everyone to ask questions later on. Feel free to interact. I don't want this to be just a monologue. But when it comes to this question, it's a crucial question that really stuck with me for years when I was younger. So today I'm 28 years old. I'm growing up, but my engagement started when I was 16 years old. And when I moved from Italy to France, I was 15 when I moved to Italy to France. But then at 16 years old, I started volunteering in underprivileged neighborhoods of France, and mainly populated by immigrant descents.
Okay.
And for me, it was very important to bring those experiences, those realities at the political level or at the institutional level, because in society, they are there, but when it comes to representation, and especially leadership representation, they're totally absent up till today. We are just at the eve of the European elections, and there is 24 MEPs out of 700 and more that are people of color. So today, the diversity in Europe is a reality, but not on the institutional level. And this is just speaking about the European Union. Imagine at the national level, it's even worse. So conscious of those, this huge gap in leadership and social inequalities, I started taking the floor in international conferences and events. Now I tell you, it's not relevant what is on a CV. I really want to say this because I can give you so many titles, but they're not relevant for a young person listening to me as much as it is relevant to understand how I made it. And this is what I want to share with you today. When I realized there's a person very young, I was 19, 20 years old when I started engaging at the institutional level, a young woman with my name, okay, with my appearance, because I used to wear a headscarf, I knew that people like me were just absent from this field. So I was like, let me find strategic ways to make my space there. So I applied to many programs, and there is no secret to it. Opportunities don't fall from the sky. Sometimes they do after a lot of work, but at the beginning we need to go and chase them. So that's what I did. I applied to many programs. I was appointed Women Deliver Young Leader, which I encourage you to check. It's a program for women defending sexual health and reproductive rights. And then this entity, because it's based in New York, while I was doing an internship that I really had a hard time to find at the UN, they knew I was in New York, so they put me on a panel with a former prime minister. And then it just went like this, applying, trying, chasing and asking. And then I was appointed by the European Union and the African Union as an expert, a young expert on peace and security. At this point, it was 2018. I was 22 years old. And I really encourage you to listen to one of our latest episodes, because I had the chance to interview the Director General of the European Commission, former Director General Stefano Manservisi. This is the 48, episode number 48. It was out last week. So this person was the person who allocated a budget of 10 million euros. Okay, imagine, now he's retired. So now he's 69. Imagine a few years ago, he was at the end of his career. He made it to the top. He was a leader. And what he decided to do is fund a program for youth, not for the benefit of youth, or at least not only for the benefit, but involving youth. And it was a very innovative approach that I'm very sad that the European Commission didn't continue it after he left. But basically, it was a program between African people and European people, and the diaspora also. 40 experts appointed to draft a proposal, for 6 projects, funded with 10 million. And then we had to draft the proposal, select the implementing partners, and monitoring and evaluating the process. And so we were basically working as if we were functionaries, but we were all under 30, basically. And it's a very revolutionary way of doing politics, because if you want to be an inclusive leader, and this brings us to the topic of diversity in leadership, it's not enough to support people that are diverse. You need to involve them at the decision table. As I always say, I will end with this: if you're not at the decision table, you're on the menu. So better to be present there.
Yes. Fully agree. It's very insightful what you are saying, because many times now elections are coming. There is, a lot of talk about where is the role of youth. And of course, there are so many conversations about youth. It's definitely, a key topic. But to what extent we youth people, younger people, are on the table, this is a different thing. And it's really, relevant that you had this experience at such a very young age, 22. Yeah, and that
I couldn't believe it, It just happened so quickly. And then I realized it when the hate arrived, with the critics later on. But yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for this. Thank you very much. And congratulations on that interview you had with the former DITSI director. That's great.
Thank you.
We will listen to it, definitely. Jasmine, I'm moving now to the second question.
Sure.
Okay, so this connects a lot with what you do in your organization and all this vast experience that you have been mentioning, your work in New York and so on. Let's focus on innovative approaches to gender equality. So you have been involved in these international projects in Africa and so on, and especially, targeting gender equality. So Which innovative strategies do you find most effective for engaging youth in this mission, in this, long road many times of achieving equality for all, for both genders? And how can these initiatives, strategies, can be part of our daily efforts to create an inclusive environment? Because as you say, we need to be present on the table of the negotiations, and this is a path, and you need to be working day by day to achieve this goal.
Yeah. When I started the podcast of We Belong, it was 2020. I decided strategically to do an intersection, to use intersectionality, which is the notion of basically there is different elements that make your identities, and also they can make your discrimination. So when you're a woman, plus from immigrant backgrounds or diverse backgrounds, plus from underprivileged backgrounds, plus, it adds up, and then you're intersectionally discriminated. So when I started the podcast, I decided to focus on mainly women, because the experience, the added layer of being a woman is, of course, another difficulty that you face in society. So, I was in the two sides of my career. I worked both in institutional sector and in private sector. And in private sector, I used to work in tech, right? Tech companies, like, there is very few women as directors, as leaders, and as developers, as engineers. I used to be in sales. Even in sales, there is very few women that are in leadership, sales leadership in tech companies. And what I faced all along made me realize, and it's also a conversation, broader and conversation, very, very topical, the fact that we cannot advance gender equality if we only speak with women and about women. I think that at one point we will be so emancipated and freed, but men are still behind. So this is why I decided this year to also involve men in the conversation. Also for the political, not the political, for the campaigns, like for the European elections campaign, for the policy level, to involve like stakeholders, because it's a reality. Okay, we have Ursula von der Leyen, that is the president of the European Commission, but it's the first, one of the few women, there has been, I think she's the first, but there has been very few women in leadership in Europe, so it's changing. But then it doesn't mean, like, how many times von der Leyen found herself with presidents that didn't shake her hands. We saw it on media. And it's a shame. You can be at the top, you can be the leader of Europe and still be treated this way. So I think it's important in a strategy to address, the mission of gender equality. It's important to educate also men, to involve them in the conversation, not to alienize them, not to confront them in a way that might, in conflict resolution. I did political sciences studies. You don't want to make them your enemies. You need to work hand in hand and really reflect together, because if they don't realize that there is a problem or they feel attacked, they just will ignore it. Now, because there has been advancements also in the policy level, companies, they have a compliance in gender equality. They need to have certain targets to meet, but still, it doesn't mean because you are there that you're gonna stay. And there is endless MEPs, but also endless CEOs. They want to resign as female leaders, and this is why mental health matters. When I was awarded, we can speak about this later, when I was awarded Young European of the Year in 2019 by this Barshkov Foundation, I was 23 years old. As I told you, it came all suddenly. And then the award came, and I remember saying to myself, or to a friend on the call, I'm waiting for the far right to take this, but I thought the Italian far right would take it. And instead it was the French one. And so it was hundreds of people attacking me. I'm not gonna lie, it took me years to recover. I went and lived in London. I left France because of this reason. Today, I'm still waiting for my justice. I sued the presidential candidate, a far-right presidential candidate in France. In 2019, it's been 5 years. It's a long run, but I have big shoulders. So yeah. And you know, at the end of the day, if you're not supported, and I really encourage you to listen to a few episodes in the podcast. There is one called with Sausen Shebly. I'm gonna write it down.
Okay.
Sausen Shebly. She was the secretary um, of state in Germany. She was a secretary of state. Okay,
Yeah.
one of the highest representatives for Germany. She's of Palestinian background. Today she's escorted by police. She's afraid to go out. She's not in politics anymore. So she wrote a book called Loud. In German, it means loud, and it's denouncing hate. But the amount of hate this woman receives is just a shame for Europe. And even when I published her episode, there was a lot of people harassing. I had to delete a lot of comments. So, you know, the online space, the way women can be harassed, it's a reality. And if we keep hiding our head, it's not gonna advance. So I think we need to have broader conversations involving men.
Yes, yes. I think this is a key and very, very important point to keep in mind, that if we want things to change, to advance, to open the conversation in a emancipatory way as well, we need to include men and women. This is key, definitely. Yes. I'm moving to the next question, Jasmine.
Sure.
Which it's a little bit longer and connects especially with the work you are doing with the podcast, empowerment through storytelling. You just told us, you know, this very touching story that you experienced back in France in 2019 after you received this fantastic prize. And your podcast in this context also showcase all these stories of women from diverse backgrounds, very different backgrounds, achieving, you know, reaching remarkable impact. What role do you believe storytelling plays in empowering young people, especially women, gender minorities, to lead and innovate? And last part of the question, how can sharing this narrative inspire what we are trying to achieve here today, no? Positive action towards gender equality among youth?
Absolutely. I mean, if I decided to start a podcast, it was because I believe that, first of all, for a long time, I felt that I don't want to be the only or the first. I don't care. I don't want to be the last. You know, that's what I care. And for me, going to certain spheres, even the World Bank, you know, it was very funny when I was at the World Bank, because there was this Italian ambassador. He basically told me at the lunch. First of all, I criticized Libyan and Italian agreement for migrants, and he contested that. And then at lunch, he came to my table and he told me basically, we created Eritrea and Libya, we Italian. To me, Italian Moroccan, yes, he's an Italian ambassador. So sometimes it's starting to be alone in those spheres, but still somebody needs to be there. But for me, it was crucial to foster new role models. And this is why I decided to create this podcast. You know, it was launched in 2020, but it was a project that I was working on since basically a year, since 2019 when I got the award. And by the way, it was a speech that I did in Brussels at Beaux-Arts, where I mentioned we belong to Europe. I ended it saying we belong to Europe. And it was the first speech I did after more than a month of silence, when I received the award and I got all the hate and I decided to sue this presidential candidate. So, you know, for me, we belong is a bold statement for inclusion, first of all, but also is a quest for more representation. So when it comes to role models, it's not that they don't exist. It's just that maybe they're not showcased in the right way. Like, I don't see many diversity in media, and media is a powerful tool. So I decided to create this podcast to really celebrate the diversity of Europe. Our motto is unity in diversity. And so the unity in diversity, if we want to keep this unity, we need to address crucial conversations. And so that's why this podcast started. Well, really, I would cover different stories from now more than, I would say, 15 European countries, where women from, I don't know, Poland, Germany, Bulgaria, like really everywhere, but also different fields, politicians, ministers, singers, not ambassadors, not yet, but functionaries, entrepreneurs, artists, singers. The idea is whatever you want to do and wherever you want to go, you belong everywhere. So that's really what I try to share as a message by sharing stories that both cover the successes of these women, but also the struggles.
Yeah.
It's important that women that want to become, I don't know, the next singer or the next ambassador or the next minister, they need to know that it's not always easy. They need to be aware that there is some difficulties, but then through these stories, maybe they can find some lesson learned and advice on how to overcome these challenges. And so this is really the reasoning about or behind the podcast. And then now it's 4 years that it exists, and I will end by saying that storytelling for me is crucial. And this is why this year I will bring We Belong France. I will bring We Belong France and our podcast to the Cannes Film Festival, because it's not official yet, but it will be next week. You have the prime time, info. But yeah, we are organizing a nice event on this topic of diversity inclusion in the cinema industry. And with We Belong, we have been working for 2 years on a project of a documentary to translate this podcast into a documentary. And so I want to continue this work that I'm doing of storytelling with also visual formats, audiovisual formats. And I think that Cannes is, especially now ahead of the European elections, is a crucial moment to share a powerful message of inclusion.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. So inspiring. Congratulations on these new events. And definitely, if I have to summarize especially this last question, unite in diversity and understanding, as you say, that, even if you have a goal and this can be a successful result, sometimes the path is not easy, but these positive stories, your story itself, it's the living proof that systemic change can happen, and actually it's happening. So I'm very grateful that you have shared all this amount of experience, and you have opened up with ourselves about so many struggles on the way. But at the same time, I would say that this also gives a lot of strength, and also fuels your determination to move forward and to achieve your goals. And I do agree, storytelling is very powerful, and I think it resonates and creates a lot of empathy. And this is very important when you relate with a person, no matter where he or she is based, and the country, nationality, identity, it's the story that creates this connection. I would like now to open the floor to all our participants joining here us today. We have a chat, and I think this is the time that you write down your questions, or you simply raise the hand and ask your questions. Both options are great. So I think we are very lucky that we have this opportunity. And thank you. I see, Yasmin, that you have also shared the. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Episode of
yes, in the chat we have this conversation that Yasmin was mentioning. Okay, so we have our question. I think, Marina, can we wait maybe, because I see that there was a question in the chat. I think this was Maria's. And this is very small for me. How do you balance your different roles and responsibilities to ensure maximum effectiveness in driving positive change? So I think it's life balance in a way.
That's a huge, crucial question. Thank you so much for asking it. So, it was a learning process all along. Today is my first year. So since 3 months now, because the year started in 4 months ago, it's my first year that I'm full-time on We Belong. Before I was doing this part-time. And I'll tell you, it's been a lot of sacrifices. But because I was passionate, I couldn't give up, right? Even though, the delivery is not always the same as if you are full-time. Now the episodes, they're out every 2 weeks, now every week for the election, but for the campaign. But before it wasn't that regular because life comes in between. You have to earn money to live. And I was working in tech, and as a woman working in tech, I can tell you, you don't have a life sometimes. So when it comes to concrete and action-oriented strategies to really balance your engagement, how do you move forward? I think what helped me was when I don't know what to do or how to do something, I delegate. And it's hard for me to delegate because I'm someone very perfectionist. I like to do things well. And sometimes when you do things yourself, it's, you know, but I learn now, for example, I know that I am really bad at math. I have an accountant now, right? Then I know that I'm not very good at certain tasks. I delegate. Graphic designer, I delegate. You know, you find ways also to make the project raise. And it could have, I could have been full time earlier, but I wasn't ready mentally. I had to first deal with myself and with the trauma of being attacked by hundreds of people online. It took me years. But then, you know, when I decided to make this step to become a full-time social entrepreneur, I just felt like, you know what? Now I own it. And I worked on it a lot, but when I decided to own it, things went smoothly. And because I had prepared for it for years, and especially the previous 6-7 months, I made a plan to raise my you know my fees, to get more opportunities, to also be financially stable. To You can't become like this an entrepreneur. It's a lot of sacrifices. You need to first understand what you want to build, what is your, there is this, I'm going to write it down. There is this amazing book called Start With Why. My why has always been very clear, right? It's Simon Sinek. It was very clear, my why, because I knew why I was doing what I was doing. But at the same time, I need to find a way. After the why, I think it's translated into reality. And patience here is key. Understanding when is the right time for you to take certain steps. What are the steps to take? Who can support you? Really surrounding yourself with the right people. I will tell you something. Stefano Manservisi, DDG, he retired years ago. He has been always supportive. First, myself, when I was awarded on Twitter, really defending me. But then also with We Belong. He was the person who got me in touch with the President Juncker. And by the way, it's the next episode that is gonna come out hopefully next week or the week after. But when you have trusted people that believe in what you do and that have also much more knowledge than you because they have a long career, then you can rely on wise advice. And I think this is something that is crucial in order to build effectiveness in driving positive change. You can have all the intentions that you want without the right strategy. It can be challenging.
Thank you very much.
And I learned the hard way. Yeah, I made many mistakes before learning.
Okay, I will start delegating too, Yasmin. Thank you. Okay, so I think the next order we have Marina, we have Marcia, and we have Zainet.
Sure.
So Marina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Well, before anything, congratulations on all your journey. I don't know, it's super inspiring. And as you were saying, like the showcase of role models, and in a way you're being one in this webinar. So it's super empowering. I have just like 2 quick questions. The first one would be like, with nowadays, it's like kind of like complicated to talk, I mean, at least for me, to talk about gender equality sometimes, because I have like so rooted this feeling, and like I don't know, like when you read about intersectionality and you get to know like different authors that are a reference in the journey of gender equality, and nowadays like everything, it's just brought to like different contexts, and sometimes just like it's like a terrain that it's complicated to handle. So in a way, how do you stay and maintain like the confidence when talking about gender equality, with the many ways that it can be interpreted? And yeah, and sorry, and my other question would be more like related with entrepreneurship, in the sense of like sometimes you kind of know the why. Of course, it's influenced by the social pressure, and the pressure that you put also to yourself of like, I want to make change, and this is my why. But how do you actually like get rid of the fear? I mean, so I imagine that you're always going to have it, but how do you get rid of the fear to just like start? Because it seems like so far away. But yeah, I'm just gonna stop talking. But thank you very much, and yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, thank you so much. Very important question. So first, gender equality, and second, entrepreneurship. For gender equality, for me, it's very clear. You know why? And maybe it's personal to me, but I will give you my point of view. My mom, she has 5 children, right? 2 are my stepbrothers. She was married before. She had her first child at 16 years old. So she was a teenager. She didn't have the opportunity to study. She's Italian, huh? She didn't have the opportunity to study, so she had to work at 16 years old to nourish her baby. Her grandmother, she was illiterate, Italian, huh? And my Moroccan family, same. My grandmother was illiterate. She didn't know how to read and write. So for me to have the opportunity to study, right? To study also here in France, I studied in Italy, in France, and in the US. To have this high level education with a master degree, I was the first generation graduate in my family. I really feel that I have a privilege compared to my mother and compared to my grandmothers. So when it comes to the advancement of gender equality, for me, it's very clear that there is an advancement, but not because things are advancing. And I wasn't meant to study, and I will tell you why. I was diagnosed 2 years ago with ADHD, deficit of attention and disorder, right? I didn't know it till I was 26. But when I was in Italy, I couldn't study. I wasn't attentive in class. I was a failure. Then when I arrived to France, I learned how to focus because I was reading books and doing meditation. But it was a miracle that I could finish my studies. So, and this brings me to the second point. So first of all, for gender equality, I think it's important to understand that as a woman, no matter what, you will face more inequalities. Just because I told you I have one hidden disability, the second is endometriosis. And this gets me stuck in bed for weeks sometimes. So it's something that men don't experience. Pregnancy, do men experience it? They don't. So whether you want it or not, I have a friend, she's now a C-level in a big company, and she's 30 years old, so she's very young. And she told me one time, Yasmin, my next step is becoming CEO, but what will I do if I want to build a family? And it's a reality. Like, as a woman, you ask yourself this question, not because men can't support the babies, but because for 9 months, basically, you are pregnant, that's a reality. So I think it's important to recognize that there is concrete and real challenges that women face in society, whether they want it or not, and whether we can criticize or not, or say that it's not true. It's a reality, it's a reality. But the second point for entrepreneurship, I think this fear, it took me really 28 years. Up till last year, I was still afraid. I only started this year to be full-time, but I worked in it a lot. Especially, I decided to consult a professional and work with a psychologist because my fear was related to my ADHD. So again, it's a personal one, but maybe it can speak to others. I know that as a person with ADHD, but you don't need to have ADHD to have sometimes, some flows. But for me, it's emotional dysregulation, the difficulty in prioritizing, time management. You're time blind when we have ADHD. You don't know the difference between 1 minute and 1 hour. So all this made me question my ability to become an entrepreneur. But then I knew that Will Smith has ADHD. Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Media, has ADHD. Stephen Bartlett, which is like my guru, he's like the Diary of a CEO founder. So it's a podcast, top one on Spotify. He has ADHD. So I accepted that my flaws or difficulties can also be strengths. And again, it brings us back to we belong, turning stigma into a strength. For me, for a long time, it was a stigma. I was afraid even to mention it at a workplace. Because I was like, if I tell my employers, they're going to just fire me or find ways to fire me, That I'm different, that my brain functions differently. But then I accepted and I actually realized my creativity, my risk-driven approach, the entrepreneurial side, they are strengths of having ADHD and qualities of people that have ADHD. So I made my difficulty a strength. I'm still aware of the fact that sometimes it can be difficult, that there can be challenges, but at the same time, I try to balance it. And whatever I can't do, or whenever I need a rest, because for example, with ADHD, you have a lot of hyper focus. With hyper focus, you tend to do a lot one shot. So for sometimes they can work for hours non-stop, but then you can get exhausted. And so now I learned that when I need a rest, I rest. And the freedom, now I tell myself, before I was saying, oh, I'm afraid to do it. Now I'm saying, why didn't I do it before? Because honestly, the freedom of being whenever I want, wherever I want, doing the work that I like to do, working on the way that I like to work, delivering, of course, projects to clients and partners, but on my pace, is priceless. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. It comes with risk. And I think you will always be afraid in a sense. But now, for example, compared to Yasmin last year and like Yasmin now, I'm not afraid. I wouldn't come back ever to work for an employer. I hope I will not have to. But I just feel that now, when you work your self-confidence, nothing can stop you. And that's what I worked, and that's what made a difference for me. I hope this helps for you. Yes.
Sure. Thank you very much for the answers.
You're welcome. But yeah, self-confidence, really believing in yourself. Nobody will do it for you. For the longest time, people told me all the time, don't do it. Why do you do this? Well, always questioning you. People question you. Sometimes they question you. There's three categories of people. Sometimes they question you because they care about you. They're afraid for you. Sometimes they question you because they're jealous. And sometimes they question you because they don't believe in you. Trust your intuition, I would say, because your intuition tells you where the direction, which is the direction that you need to take.
Love the ending. Thank you. I love the three questionings. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. I think we can all apply most of these lessons in our lives, with no doubt. I'm giving now the floor to Marcia. Marcia, feel free to ask the questions. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, I hope you can hear me well. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Yasmin. It's been very inspiring listening to you. I would like to dip a bit more into the building process of We Belong. I'm very curious to know about how it was born, and also about how did you find your people? How did you find that audience or that public that would benefit of your work? And I have an additional question, which is very different, but I would like to know, what's your biggest achievement in terms of your work, something that you're really proud of? So that's two questions.
You. Thank you. Where are you from, Marcia? I'm curious.
I'm from Spain.
Sorry,
I'm
Spain?
from Spain, but I'm originally from Equatorial Guinea, which is a small country in West Africa.
Of course, I know it. Okay, well, nice to meet you, Marcia. So when it comes to We Belong, first of all, for a long time, it wasn't an organization. It started just as a project, as a podcast. I will tell you, it's very funny, this story. So again, as I said, in 2019 with Zeit, the magazine in Germany, they invited me in Brussels. I did this speech. I was very afraid. It was the first time I would speak after a month of silence. And I stayed this bold mention of we, people of color, daughters and sons of immigrants, European citizens, African descent, we belong to Europe. But that's when the first mention came. But then I had to finish my studies. I was studying in France at Sciences Po Bordeaux, but also I was doing a master degree in partnership with a university in California. So I went to California, and I'm far from Europe. I need to finish my studies, but I was surrounded by international people. And at the time, I wanted to do videos. So I was like, okay, because I was living in this nice place in California where there was a coach. I was like, we're going to do like a Friends remake, like a coach, a few friends from different countries speaking together. So I wanted to do something visual like this with video. I worked on the idea for months, and I was actually in doubt between We Belong and We Dare, dare like daring. And then I didn't do, I did some videos and some project there in California, but then I didn't launch it yet. there was a few people that were contacting me for interviews or for events. Sometimes I had to decline. And this guy was really harassing me. This journalist was like, I want to interview for my podcast. So I told him, look, in December, this day, I come to Paris. I land in Paris from California. Let's meet at the airport, you interview me. So we arrive, he interviews me, and then he tells me, you should have your podcast. And up till then, like, I think I never listened to podcasts before. I don't know, I don't remember, but like, it wasn't a thing for me in 2019 or, you know. And then we started discussing in 2019, end of 2019. And I got in touch with these two young women, one from Italy and one from Luxembourg. And I suggested them to become one social media manager and the other the campaign manager for the European youth event that then was canceled before because of COVID. But this was the idea, to have them supporting me with the podcast. I would do the episode. And by the way, I did a first trial maybe in February of 2020, and then it went well, and the agency was like, let's move forward. So that's how it happened. It was really random, but it was something I was working on for a long time. And then when the right opportunity came to launch a podcast with this agency, I was like, let's do it. The agency, for your information, they dropped after a few months because of a lack of funding due to COVID. So since then, up till now, so since 2020, up till now, I'm self-producing. So it's me doing the production. Sometimes when we have some budget, there is other people producing, but the majority of episodes are produced by me. And, you know, for me, this also was a crucial question of entrepreneurship. Like when this happened and it dropped, I finished my study. I was about to start a new job. I had two choices: either stop everything or do it myself. And because I decided to do it myself, I felt like, okay, I need to show resilience to myself. I'm capable of doing it. And so, yeah, here I am. But then, yeah, for your second question, can you remind me?
Yes, the achievement, something that you're really proud of as a result of your work.
I mean, you say professional achievements. Honestly, my biggest achievement is not professional. Is it fine if I share? Okay, so basically, for a long time, I worked in policy. When I was attacked by this presidential far-right candidate, I decided to go and live in London, move from France, change my mind, and change career for many reasons, but mainly because of this traumatic experience. And so I started working in tech. And honestly, it wasn't my passion. I knew my passion was We Belong, right? But I decided to do this sacrifice because I knew that tech is a field, especially sales in tech, is a field where I could earn quite some money. And I decided to do so because I don't come from a privileged background. All my studies, I had scholarships. Otherwise, I couldn't afford them, honestly. So my dream was to help my mom achieve her dream, which was to retire in Spain. Not in Spain, sorry, at the beach, at the seaside. And so now she lives in Spain. I supported her to make this dream a reality. And I think this is my biggest achievement professionally, because you can get any award you want. You can do whatever you want. But breaking this generational poverty cycle, for me, has been the best achievement personally, because all my life we struggled with my family financially, you know, for financial stability. Because my father and my mother, they were both entrepreneurs, and you know, entrepreneurs is always ups and downs. Plus, we were 5 children. But you know, now I know that at the end of the day, if you want to have an impact in this world, we are in a capitalistic society. We need to have, you know, funds and money, whether we are an NGO or a company, whatever. So I decided to do this sacrifice, and it was tough. I would work 9 a.m., sometimes 10 p.m., 11 p.m. every day. But it got me good commissions and allowed me to do this. I would say this is the main one. And my mom, she's 69 years old, and now she lives in Malaga, in Spain. I miss her. Can't wait to see her.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your biggest achievement.
Thank you. And someone else? There is one question, yeah, last one, right?
I think Zainab, you raised your hand, isn't it?
I have
A quick one. First of all, thank you so much, Teresa and Jasmine, for this incredible webinar. It's been a pleasure and an inspiration to listen both of you. My question is, what advice would you give to other young leaders aspiring to make a difference in their communities?
Okay. I would say there is several advices that I would give you. First of all, it's important to know who you are. And that's why We Belong exists, like the sense of belonging in society. You know, for a long time, because I'm half Moroccan, half Italian, I felt, and plus I live in France, I felt like, I don't know if I'm Italian, I don't know if I'm French, I don't know if I'm Moroccan. What I know for sure now is that I'm not French, and I don't want to be, even though I spent 10 years in France, but I don't feel French. I feel more Italian and Moroccan. But find this cohesion between your identities. And it doesn't mean that you need to be from different countries or live in different countries. You can also be, I don't know, I will give you an example, a person from the LGBTQ plus community, plus from an ethnic background that is not, you know, traditionally rooted in European identity, or no, what we conceive as European identity from certain far-right thinkers. But then if you're not complying to the standard and maybe challenged because of who you are, find your harmony. And this is a topic that comes a lot on the podcast, identity crisis. A lot of guests, no matter the countries they're from, they went through this identity crisis. And how do you overcome it? There's different ways, but I think this is crucial to overcome it, to really accept and understand that you can be different people in one person, right? Or different identities in one person. Then the second part, I would say, is in order to really achieve an impact, you know, I give some workshops sometimes with institutions or even with the schools where I work. I advise about advocacy work. It's important to have a strategy if you want to do advocacy. When I started advocacy work, I started it on Twitter, but honestly, because I would tag all the relevant people, then they knew me. One time I found myself at the UN. I was 22. My first time at the UN, I was an intern. The UN youth envoy, Jayatma, I don't remember her last name, this woman, she told me, "Are you Yasmin?" I say, "Yes, why? Like, how do you know me?" Like, "Yeah, I've seen your tweeting," because I would always tag her. You know, and same at the European Commission, I got this a lot. So important to be present, both online and offline, but online is a powerful tool, but present strategically, in the sense that you don't wanna be too controversial, otherwise you're gonna close doors. You know, I will give you a last example. In 2023, January, I was invited by Friends of Europe to speak in a conference online with the President Kagame, the President of Rwanda, and the Prime Minister of Greece about migration. Now, we all know what Greece does for migrants, and we all know that, you know, Rwanda, although it's an amazing country, there is some criticism currently towards the leaders. I accepted this speech because I was the only young person. We were two actually, me and another, but they invited us last minute, one from Africa and one from Europe. And then I accepted it and I decided to do it to share an important message about migration. I had activists writing me and telling me, "Yasmin, the Rwanda president is doing torture, is torturing journalists. Why can you accept this?" And I'm like, "You're not on the table, you're on the menu." So it's very important to say what you have to say in a strategic and diplomatic way. But if imagine I would refuse this opportunity, or imagine I would go in this opportunity and just criticize in a very confrontational way, next time they don't invite you. And they don't invite me, but also not other people, because then they think young people, they can't control themselves, they're too disruptive. You know, it's a very big stigma about young people, because we come with innovative ways, and the establishment senior leaders, they're like, okay, they want to change the world, let's not involve them. So it's important to have a strategy, I would say. So yeah, to conclude, maybe to put it simple, know who you are, know your identities, and really work on your strategy, but also use your voice wisely. You don't want to close doors, you want to advance one day, hopefully, you will be enough powerful that whatever you say, they will listen. But till you're not there, don't close doors. That's my advice.
Thank you so much. So inspiring.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. I think we have been taking notes of this. And I see that Marcia yes. And I think this will be our last question for this session.
Sorry. This just came to my mind while you were speaking, Jasmine. You mentioned that you did an internship at the UN, and I'd really like to know how you did it and if it was self-funded, because most of the internship opportunities are unfunded. And if you could give us some advice to find funding opportunities to be able to achieve these opportunities.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really happy when you ask me specific questions so I can give you specific advice. Amazing. Thank you. So, it was my dream to work at the UN, to try and see. I will just tell you, this opportunity made me realize I don't want to become a diplomat, at least not for now, because I'm too free as a woman to say what I want. As a diplomat, you just need to comply to the country. But it was an amazing experience. Still, I stayed there for 2 months, and how I found it. First of all, I had to save and work along with my studies for a whole year, save money, because New York is expensive. And UN internships, they're not funded. Then I applied to the European Union mission to the United Nations. And this is one of the few that is paid. It was paid 1,000 something. I got pre-selected. So I was like, wow, I'm super happy. And then I didn't get it. So I was like, oh no, what can I do now? Yeah, right. And then I remember that I was struggling to find something else at the UN. And because I had worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Morocco as an intern the year before, I tried and contact the Moroccan ministry. They have a permanent mission at the United Nations. So that's how I did my internship. I managed to do it through this contact I had because I used to be an intern in Morocco. And this is a very nice way. It wasn't paid, but this is a very nice way for you to get an internship from. It can be your country, Spain, or it can be, there was, I think, Spanish one and French, they're paid. Mm-hmm. Or it can be another country. If you're a national from, for example, I have a friend, he's Italian and Swiss, from Switzerland. He did an internship with the Maldives mission, Maldives. Just because he found it. You don't need to be a national from the country to do an internship, I think, but they prefer nationals sometimes. But Maldives, because no one represents them there, they're happy to have foreigners. So that's how I found it. And then honestly, when I was there, I will just tell you this, when I was there, I got appointed to a program with UN Women. Again, through Instagram. I was spamming this guy that is the manager of UN Women in Arabic. I got appointed and I went to Kenya. And for me, it was quite shocking to know that I was invited to a conference, flight paid, accommodation paid, and per diem of $300 per day at $300. So in 5 days, I made basically the rent of 1 month in New York. And this is the reality of the United Nations. There is some people there, sorry, but to say, but exploited interns. But then there is people that are invited and they just get so many privileges. And so this is why I decided, not only for this, but for many reasons, I decided to not work at the UN. And it's still an important institution. Today I consult the UN. I work with the UN System Staff College. So, as a consultant. So I think it's important to still, again, keep a feet on some institutions, reminding them that there is big problems, because how can I work for an institution and not be paid, but then at the same time, when you're invited as a speaker, you get paid, and even a lot, there is a big gap. But yeah, just to say, try and find emails, try and reach out to people. When I wanted to find an internship also later on, I contacted, you can find some emails online. I don't remember the website, but there is a UN portal, I think. You can find many emails. You send requests, personalized requests. And I got an internship in Thailand, UN Women, but then I didn't accept it. I decided to do something else. But anyway, try. There is different ways. If you don't try in life, you don't get it. That's my advice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yasmin. And just adding something else, Marcia, also double check UN volunteering positions. Okay, because some of them are paid.
Yes, and it doesn't make sense at all. Internships are not paid, but the volunteering positions are paid.
Yes. Even if it's voluntary,
Marcia,
it's paid.
And Marcia, feel free to get in touch. And by the way, everyone, I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm a bit slow to reply, I must admit, but I'm available on LinkedIn, on Instagram, if you wanna, LinkedIn better. If you wanna reach out, I'm happy to have a longer conversation, maybe next month after Cannes Festival. But yeah, I can support you. It would be a great pleasure because I know from experience how hard it is. Nobody gives you anything if you don't ask. It's very important to ask. It took me a long time to ask, but I learned you need to ask. Otherwise, we say if you don't ask, you have already a no. You need to ask the yes, you know? So
Definitely.
feel free to get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Yasmin. And I think we are arriving to our end. Honestly, for me, it's been a pleasure. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of everybody because this has been an enriching conversation. You have opened up to all of us. I feel very inspired. And in a personal level, I feel that, if you really want to create something, you want to work towards a goal, as you said, there are difficulties on the way. But as when you know the why, you need to work, towards this how. And before we close our webinar, I just want to invite all of you. I think you can see it or not. Oh, my apologies. Okay, so next week, our colleague Zainab is organizing this wonderful activity. This is a workshop that is part of our EP project, European Parliament project, Your Vote, Your EU. And as Yasmin herself was mentioning, this is a very important time. We need to participate. We really need to know what the European elections are about and where is the place of our young people, because we want to be on the table, as Yasmin mentioned. So I encourage all of you to scan this QR code and join all of us and Zainab in our upcoming activity next Wednesday, 3 p.m., if I'm not wrong.
Next Tuesday.
Wednesday is the 1st of May.
Yeah.
No, nothing happening on Wednesday. Everyone has to rest. Okay, Tuesday. Thank you very much, Zainab. And let me just double check very quickly the chat. Thank you. So all participants, we have Yasmin's Instagram account here. And we have this question.
LinkedIn is my name.
Yeah, Elgin was asking, you suggested, I think this is a very quick question, but maybe we can answer, Yasmin, to Elgin, that you send personal requests. Yes.
What kind of questions? So, personal requests, I think I was speaking about emails, when you want to email for an internship. So also having worked in tech as a salesperson, honestly, you need to reach out to people in a personalized way. Otherwise, if it's a copy paste and it looks like it's a copy paste, it's directly on the bin, unfortunately. But if you write to a person and say, for example, on LinkedIn even, can say, I saw your last post that you published, very interested. I'm reaching out because I would like to have some advice. And also, it shouldn't be transactional. For example, if you're looking for a job or for an internship and you want to just write an email, yeah, I mean, you can explain what you did in your life very briefly and then send it. But then if you want to write to someone on LinkedIn, it's very important to maybe make the person feel like you're interested in learning from them, not just asking and a favor, please give me a job, So if you want to contact them and maybe say, hi, I saw your latest post, or I saw the work that you do in your organization or in your initiative, I would really like to learn more about it. Can we have a quick call? And people, sometimes they say yes, sometimes they ignore you, but I always say for 100 no, you just need one yes. And honestly, how many times I applied for stuff when I was younger and I would say I will not get selected. It just this mentality or this mindset of not giving up that is going to make you advance. When I moved to London, I did move without a job. I had just finished my studies. I was doing consulting for the European institutions, but I knew I wanted a full-time job. And then I sent more than 300 CVs before I found one. It took me 2 months, and then I found. when I found it, it was amazing. But I had to change my CV many times. People told me, you want to work in tech, they don't care that you work at the UN or the European Union. Take this away. So I got advice from other people in the industry. They told me how to do it in order to secure the job. And so don't hesitate to ask for advice to people that you look up as mentor. If you want to become, I don't know, an engineer or whatever, or a politician, contact a politician, ask them to become your mentors. It's very important to have a mentor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jasmine. One more advice, and I fully agree with the mentorship. It's very important because many times you take many things for granted, and when you have the view of someone else, it makes a difference. So I think we have arrived to the end of our webinar, and on behalf of all the participants, Youth Proactive, myself, thank you very much, Jasmine. I feel we are, continuing this afternoon and the rest of the week with a huge source of inspiration, skills that we can apply in our daily lives, personal life, professional lives. And I really wish you all the best. Looking forward to seeing you soon in Brussels. And in the meantime, really continue inspiring and creating what you are doing, this We Belong, which really feels us, that we are also belonging. Thank you very much, Jasmine.